I knew she could kill me before I ever saw her face. The chamber was designed to make that clear. The floor was a seamless sheet of dark metal that swallowed sound. The air carried a faint chemical sharpness that burned the lungs if you breathed too deeply. Gravity was heavier than standard, not enough to crush bones, but enough to make every movement a reminder that this place was not meant for humans. And at the center of it all, kneeling with my wrists locked into a restraint field, was me, Captain Elias Varon of the Terran Expeditionary Corps, last surviving officer of the Pale Blue Dawn. The restraints hummed softly, vibrating through my bones. They weren't chains in the traditional sense. No bars. No cuffs. Just invisible pressure that held my arms apart and my spine rigid, as if the air itself had decided I no longer deserved freedom. Across the chamber, elevated on a crescent-shaped dais, sat the woman who decided whether I would live or die. She was not human, but close enough that my mind kept trying to make her so. 2 arms. 2 legs. A face arranged in familiar symmetry. Pale silver skin that reflected the chamber lights like moonstone. Her eyes, too large, too dark, watched me without blinking, pools of obsidian swallowing every flicker of movement. Her name, according to the translation lattice buzzing faintly in my skull, was Vaelith Shara, High Arbiter of the Keelan Dominion, Judge of Species, Executioner of Worlds. She held the power to end me with a thought. Everyone in the galaxy knew what that title meant. When the Keelan Dominion declared a species non-viable, there were no negotiations, no treaties, no mercy. Entire civilizations vanished into sterilized silence, their histories archived as cautionary footnotes. Humanity had just been discovered, and I was the first human ever brought before her. "You are not what I expected," Vaelith said. Her voice was calm, melodic, threaded with harmonics no human throat could produce. It resonated directly inside my skull, bypassing my ears entirely. I swallowed. Even that felt like effort. "Sorry to disappoint," I said. A ripple passed through the chamber, amusement, perhaps, among unseen observers behind the walls. I couldn't see them, but I could feel their attention pressing down on me like weight. Vaelith leaned forward slightly. The movement was graceful, precise, controlled. "Your species has been observed for only 36 of your solar years," she said. "In that time, you have detonated weapons capable of fracturing planetary crusts, rewritten your own genomes, and fought wars that resulted in billions of your own dead." I didn't interrupt. I knew better. "You are violent," she continued. "Unstable. Emotion-driven. And yet," her gaze lingered on me, "you are kneeling. Injured, outnumbered, and you still meet my eyes." I shrugged as much as the restraints allowed. Didn't see much point in looking away. Silence stretched. In that pause, memories surfaced unbidden, flashes of the pale blue dawn breaking apart under emerald plasma fire, alarm screaming, my crew vaporized or torn into vacuum. We had been explorers, not soldiers. Our weapons might as well have been toys against a Dominion patrol. They hadn't even bothered to disable us cleanly. We were an anomaly to be contained. "You understand why you are here," Vaelith said at last. "Yeah," I said. "You're deciding if humanity lives." Her fingers tightened imperceptibly on the armrest of her seat. "So casually stated," she murmured, as if it were an administrative detail. I laughed once, dry and bitter. "From where I'm kneeling, it kind of is." The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the dais descended. Vaelith rose and stepped down onto the floor, her movements silent despite the heavier gravity. She walked toward me, each step measured. With every meter she closed, my instinct screamed. Predator. Executioner. Ender of worlds. She stopped an arm's length away. Up close, the differences were more pronounced. The faint shimmer beneath her skin hinted at bioluminescent patterns. Her pupils shifted subtly, fractal shapes rearranging as they analyzed me. "You are afraid," she said. "Of course I am. And yet you do not beg." I met her gaze. Would it help? For the first time, something like uncertainty flickered across her face. "No," she admitted. I exhaled slowly. "Then I won't." She circled me once, her presence radiating authority. The restraint field tightened briefly as she passed behind me, reacting to her proximity. "You survived the destruction of your vessel," she said. "You attempted to aid wounded crewmates even as the hull ruptured. You chose to remain aboard long enough to transmit a warning to your species." Her voice sharpened. "Why?" I stared at the floor. "Because it was my job." That answer is insufficient. I looked back up. "Then here's a better one. Because they mattered." She stopped moving. "Mattered," she repeated, tasting the word. "Explain." "They were my people," I said. "I was responsible for them, for getting them home." "You failed." The word landed like a blade. "Yes," I said quietly. "I did." The chamber was very still. Somewhere beyond the walls, I sensed the attention of the Dominion's observers tightening, waiting for her judgment. Valeth knelt in front of me. That alone sent a shock through my system. A being who commanded fleets, lowering herself to eye level with a restrained prisoner. "In the Keelan Dominion," she said, "failure is not tolerated. Leaders who fail are removed. Permanently." "I figured," I said. "And yet," she continued, "you continue to define yourself by responsibility rather than outcome." I frowned. "Is that unusual?" Her gaze drifted away, just for a moment. "Yes." She rose and stepped back, creating distance again. "When my species first reached the stars," she said, "we encountered others like you. Passionate. Divided. Dangerous. We eradicated them for the safety of the galaxy." The word eradicated was spoken without emotion. "And the peaceful ones?" I asked. "They were absorbed, directed, controlled." I snorted. "So, submit or die." "A simplification," she said, "but accurate." I shifted against the restraints. "Let me guess. You're trying to decide which category humans fall into." Her eyes returned to me. "Yes." "And what does your data say?" "That you will resist absorption," she replied, "and that your unchecked expansion will eventually destabilize multiple sectors." "So die, then." The silence that followed was heavy. Valeth turned away from me and walked back toward the dais, but she did not sit. "For the first time in over 3,000 cycles," she said, "I find myself unable to finalize a judgment." I blinked. "I don't think that's ever happened before." "It has not." She clasped her hands behind her back. "You are not pleading for your life," she said. "You do not deny your species' violence. You accept responsibility without surrendering dignity." I forced a tired smile. "Guess we're complicated." "Yes," she said softly. "You are." The restraint field loosened slightly, not enough to free me, but enough that I could breathe easier. The observers beyond the walls stirred. I felt their unease like static. "Why bring me here at all?" I asked. "If you already had the data." Valeth faced me again. "Because I wanted to see if the stories were incomplete." "Stories?" I echoed. She hesitated, then answered. "Among my people, humans are already spoken of." My blood ran cold. That was fast. "They call you the unyielding," she said. "A species that bleeds, breaks, and still stands back up." I laughed quietly. "That's flattering, considering you wiped out my ship." "You fought back," she said. Outmatched, outgunned. And still you attempted to protect your own. She raised one elegant hand. I have the authority to end you, she said. To transmit a verdict that will condemn your species before it ever truly leaves its cradle. I swallowed. And you're not doing it, I said. Her hand trembled. I should, she replied. Logic dictates that I must. Then why haven't you? She looked at me not as a judge now, but as something else. A being standing at the edge of a decision that would echo through history. Because, she said, you remind me of who we were before we chose control over courage. The restraint field disengaged. I collapsed forward, catching myself on shaking hands as sensation flooded back into my arms. Pain flared, sharp and real, and never more welcome. The chamber erupted in alarm tones. Arbiter, a chorus of voices echoed through the walls. Explain this deviation. Valeth raised her voice, and the alarms died instantly. I will issue a provisional judgment, she declared. She turned to me one final time. Captain Elias Varon of Earth, she said. You will be returned to your people. My heart slammed against my ribs. And humanity? I asked. She straightened, every inch the High Arbiter once more. Humanity will be watched, she said. Not as a threat to be erased, but as a force yet to be understood. She paused. Do not make me regret this. I met her gaze, steady despite the fear still coiled in my chest. We won't be easy, I said. For the faintest moment, the corners of her mouth lifted. I know, she said. That is why I chose something else. As the chamber dissolved into light, and I felt the pull of translation take hold, one truth burned brighter than any star in my mind. She had the power to end me. And instead, she gave humanity a future. The light swallowed me whole. For a heartbeat, I thought this was how it ended after all. Not execution, not mercy, just dissolution. My body stretched into sensation, atoms humming as space folded around me. Then gravity returned in a rush, and I collapsed onto cold metal flooring, coughing as real air burned my lungs. Human air. I rolled onto my back and stared up at a familiar ceiling, brushed steel panels scorched by old repairs, blinking amber lights struggling to stabilize. The pale blue dawn's emergency shuttle. I laughed, a raw, broken sound that turned into a sob before I could stop it. Alive. I was alive. Captain Varon, a voice said. I turned my head. Commander Hale stood near the bulkhead, her face pale, eyes wide with something between disbelief and relief. Around her, a half-dozen survivors stared at me like I'd just crawled out of a grave. They'll let you go? She asked. I pushed myself upright, every muscle protesting. Yeah, I said. They did. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Hale asked the question that mattered. And us. I thought of Valeth's eyes, of her hesitation, of the weight she carried behind her authority. They're watching, I said. But we're still here. The shuttle shuddered as it entered slipspace, the stars smearing into white lines. Humanity was going home. Earth didn't celebrate my return. Not at first. There were debriefings that lasted weeks. Medical scans. Psychological evaluations. Panels of scientists and admirals who asked the same questions over and over, trying to quantify what I'd experienced. They spared us because of you? One of them asked skeptically. No, I said every time. They spared us because they chose to. That distinction mattered. The footage I'd managed to transmit, Valeth's voice, her declaration, spread through the upper echelons of human leadership like wildfire. Fear followed close behind it. Some wanted to prepare for war immediately. Some wanted to hide. A few, too few, wanted to listen. They could erase us with a word, One senator said during a closed session. We should strike before they change their minds. I leaned forward, exhaustion heavy in my bones. That thinking is exactly why they're afraid of us. Silence followed. They're not wrong to be cautious, I continued. But they're watching to see who we decide to be next. That was the truth Vaelith had left us with. Not a verdict, but a mirror. Months passed, then years. The Keelan Dominion did not return in force. No fleets darkened our skies. No demands came wrapped in ultimatums. Instead, there were probes at the edges of human-controlled space. Silent observers. Watchers. Humanity changed under that gaze. Not perfectly. Not cleanly. But slowly. Conflict still happened, but escalation paused where it once wouldn't have. Colonies began coordinating instead of competing. Weapons research continued, but so did diplomacy, exploration, restraint. We were being measured. And for the first time in our history, we knew it. I saw Vaelith again 12 years later. She arrived not in a warship, but alone. Her vessel a slender arc of light that settled into orbit without a sound. This time, I stood unchained on a diplomatic platform overlooking Earth's curve. She looked the same. I didn't. Time had added lines to my face, weight to my shoulders. Captain Varen, she said, inclining her head. Arbiter, I replied. She studied the planet below us. You surprised many within the Dominion. Good surprised? I asked.
Astonished, she said.
You did not expand as predicted. You did not lash out when watched. You adapted. I smiled faintly. We're good at that. She turned to face me fully. My people still debate whether my choice was wisdom or weakness, she said. And you? I asked. Her gaze softened, just a fraction. I have observed your species for 12 cycles, she said. You still frighten us. I nodded. Fair. But fear alone, she continued, is no longer justification for extinction. The words settled between us like a bridge being built. The Dominion will formally recognize humanity, Vaelith said. Not as a subject. Not as a threat. I held my breath. But as a sovereign power, she finished. One with potential and responsibility. I let it out slowly. Thank you, I said. She shook her head. Do not thank me. This future was not granted. She gestured toward Earth, blue and alive beneath us. You chose it. As her ship departed, vanishing into the dark between stars, I understood something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. Power does not always reveal itself through destruction. Sometimes, the greatest strength is the moment you could end everything and choose something else instead.